I'd like now to welcome Phoebe Jones. She is a co-coordinator of the Global Women's Strike in the United States. She's a Quaker, a mom, and a sports activist. Phoebe, let's welcome Phoebe.
Thank you. I come from Philadelphia, a city that has the highest rate of taking children from their homes and putting them in foster care for any city of its size in the U.S. It's also the poorest city of its size, and it's majority people of color. But the unjust removal of children from their homes knows no boundaries and is happening here and all around the world. Children are often taken and put in care not because of abuse or neglect, but because of poverty, racism, sexism, mass incarceration, domestic violence, lack of support for mental health and disability issues, lack of legal help, and huge financial incentives by nonprofits to take kids, fill beds, and justify their lucrative contracts. The more kids are taken, the more money the nonprofits make, and the more hidden are the children that really do need to be removed from their homes. And kids pay the highest price. 1/3 in the U.S. say they were abused in foster care. Many wind up in prison. In California, 70% of prisoners come from care homes. Fast-track adoptions in the U.S. have meant that mothers in prison, usually for crimes of poverty, have a short period of time to make arrangements for the children before they lose their parental rights forever. With the Global Women's Strike in Los Angeles, another city with a high rate of removal, we formed Give Us Back Our Children support groups, support and action groups of mothers, other family members, former foster care mothers, academics, and supporters to fight unjust cases of removal and to challenge policy and practice. We also work closely with the Global Women's Strike and the Single Mother Self-Defense here in the UK. But in fighting the cases and challenging policies, we have found that what they consider is the good mother is the one that brings in a good income and puts her kids in daycare all day. And the bad mother is the one staying home to care for her children, which in the U.S., unless you have a partner with a good income, can only happen now if you are on disability income or temporarily on welfare. Care is considered less important than the ability to purchase things. Liberation means servicing the golden skirts that Allison Wolfe mentioned earlier. And with the high rate of asthma, allergies, autism, attention deficit disorder, diabetes, obesity, and other health problems of children, not to mention of the mothers, the absence of a carer is a disaster. And rather than giving carers the resources they need to care for children at home, including very sick children, the children are removed where they fare much worse and often die. And we often say, it costs $1,000 to help a family with rent, and it costs $38,000 to put that children in care. Why aren't they helping with the rent? We recently fought Carolyn Hill's case. Carolyn, who's here today, please raise your hand, Carolyn. And please talk to her more at lunch. We took her case all the way up, she took her case, and with us, all the way up to the Pennsylvania Superior Court, where we lost. Child Welfare took her nieces from her care because she was low income and did not have a high school diploma, even though she had a steady income from disability insurance, stable housing, the backing and support of her church and community, the ability to care for the girls full-time, and most importantly, that by all accounts, the children were doing very well in her care. They put the children instead with more distant relatives in a higher income bracket who put the traumatized girls in daycare all day. That was the good mother. This precedent that what was better for children was not how they were doing, but the income level of their carers was upheld by the second highest court in the state. They also upheld the power of the professionals, the nonprofits, and the state against the children, the carers, and the community. And this covering of each other is common. One judge in the UK family court called it out on judges who just rubber stamp whatever the child welfare officials say. In fighting this case, we had a terribly hard time getting media attention and the support of some elected officials and the support of feminists, who actually prevented us from presenting this, even presenting it at some forums, and in other forums changed the rules so our resolutions could not go through. Another big issue is the taking of children because their mothers are victims of domestic violence. A study in the UK found that this was the biggest reason children are taken. Now, even though this is banned in the United States, they get around it by blaming mothers for making poor choices and things like that. Mothers do not report domestic violence for fear their children will be taken. Yet, because we and other groups representing families around the country have been putting up such a fight, the rate of removal of children is actually dropping in Philadelphia and elsewhere. Well, I have to qualify that. It was dropping in Philadelphia until a horrendous law came through in response to the horrific crimes of a man named Jerry Sandusky. He was a Pennsylvania State University coach who used child welfare as a source of boys to rape and abuse. And what they did, though, they passed a law mandating reporting so that it expanded the list of authorities who have to report their suspicions. This has overloaded child welfare without providing any more safety to children because you can't see the ones who really are abused, and it's been racistly applied. Children of color are more apt to be reported as suspicious cases of abuse than white children. Now, our efforts have been boosted by the recent reintroduction in the U.S. Congress of the Rise Out of Poverty Act, which was put forward by a former welfare mother, now in the U.S., Congresswoman Gwen Moore, and you'll hear from Pat Gowans later, I think on Sunday, who comes from her state. But this bill, the Rise Out of Poverty Act, reinstates the right to welfare, which was demolished under President Bill Clinton and led to the dramatic rise in poverty among women and children, and thus the dramatic rise of taking of kids into care. And it calls for resources so that carers can stay home to raise children if they want. And you can get more information from Pat Albright, who has some petitions we have. So just in conclusion, I want to also say what a difference a living wage for mothers and other carers would have on families who are facing the child welfare system. It would eliminate poverty and the reason that many children are removed. It would mean that mothers and families could hire decent legal help. It would mean that children would have the care they are entitled to and deserve, and that caring would be valued. And if they really did care about the safety of children, they would pay a living wage for mothers. Thank you.